Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Fire with Dr. Ninja Turtle. I am live and I have figured out this horizontal orientation. I am going to get started right away because what we're going to learn today is the 5 steps to financial freedom. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I hope that you like my background here of my yard. This is the side yard, but I have floor to ceiling windows in my office. So it's just a beautiful view anytime I'm looking out into my yard. So what we're talking about here, what you're going to learn today is how to master your cash flow. That's the first step. And then why increasing your savings rate is important. Also, you're going to learn how to invest with intention. That's step 3. And we're going to go through all of these steps individually and talk about these. So then the next step is the power of tax-free investing and how to control your taxes once you get into retirement. And so then the 5th thing is the importance of tracking your net worth. So those are the 5 things that we're going to learn and talk about today. And I have moderators in there, so I won't be reading the chat very much. I'm just going to focus on talking about these 5 steps to financial freedom. So the first step, which is control your cash flow. And so to control your cash flow, you have to figure out how much money you have coming in and see if you can start to go towards living on 85% of what that income is. And it doesn't matter how fast you go. What you'll see is you'll see my shirt here. It says sometimes slowly, and it's got a turtle on it. That's because sometimes I can move quickly with my finances, but most of the time it's very slow and it's very boring. So you don't have to go fast with this or any of these steps. So when you're trying to control your cash flow, maybe you can't live on 85%. Maybe you only have 5% or 1% of your income that you don't need as an absolute expense. Maybe you can increase that over time so that you learn to live on less than what you make. Now, of course, you can go out and get a side hustle. That would help. But living on 85% of your income is getting control of your finances. And that's where you really want to start with this. So what you do is you list your monthly expenses and you really try to live below that. You say, what can I cut so that all of my monthly expenses and my fund money is 85% of my income? The reason that I say that is because you take that 15% and that's your goal of saving and investing that 15%. Now, maybe all of your expenses and your debt ends up being more than 85%. So you want to get it down by 1, paying off your debt, and 2, really tracking and looking at what you have coming in and what you have going out. If you track your income and your expenses, you can say, I can cut this. I don't have to buy this pair of shoes, or I'll just won't go to dinner 5 times a week. I'll only go to dinner 4 times a week. Little small things. And it's not a rush, it's not a race, it's a marathon. You really want to do this over a long period of time. So you don't have to do all this in 1 month. But this is the goal. And it took me years. You know, as I said, I'm wearing my favorite t-shirt, which is sometimes slowly. So one of the other things that you look at are your variable expenses. My variable expenses are car insurance once every 6 months. You know, I still don't have a handle on car insurance, you know, because I don't do finances perfectly. Every 6 months, it comes up and slaps me in the face. So if you can write this stuff down, and let's just say you have a sinking fund where you put a little bit away each month for the car insurance when it comes up once every 6 months, that would be me that needs to do that. Then you'd be ready, right? What do? I put it on my credit card and then I pay it off very quickly. Out of, like, let's say my whole next paycheck, I would pay it off. But the point is, you shouldn't have to do it the way I do it. Everybody's finances are personal. You do what fits into your life. Some people don't believe in credit cards. So if you don't believe in credit cards, save the money up every month. So that's the first step. Let's get to step two, because I have a timer over here, and this live is 1 hour. It started at 10:15, it's going to end at 11:15. And so I had to put up a timer to make sure that I stay on track. So step two is increase your savings rate. Now, savings rate is something that people do not know how to calculate. I have a video on how to calculate your savings rate. And you take what you have coming in and you take what you have over the course of a year in savings, and that is your savings rate. So I will tell you, I just looked at my savings rate yesterday, and my goal was to save 75%. Now, I know we're talking about 15%, okay? I know we're talking about that, but I have been practicing for years to become a super saver. So my goal for this year was 70%. I started at 70 and 80% at the beginning of the year, and then I had a whole lot of expenses, so I had to start bringing paychecks home and not saving them. And so I am now down to 45%. That's still better than the 15%. However, as the year progresses, it just keeps going down and down and down, but I'll be at 25, 30% maybe by the end of the year. So savings rate is important. And watch my video on how to calculate your savings rate. It's fairly easy to do, but most people don't do it. And so you take your current savings rate and then you set yourself a target savings rate. If your current savings rate is 1%, a lot of people will put money into their 401k and the company matches, let's say 6%. So that right there is a 6% savings rate. Not the 6% that your company gives you, but the 6% that you're putting into your 401k to match that. And you should always, always, always take your employer's match at a minimum. If you can't save anything else in your life, take your employer's match. So the other thing is look at monthly saving targets. You know, maybe you want to save $10 a month. $5 a month, anything you can save. And you could save $5 a month and put that into an emergency fund. When you have an emergency fund, then when these expenses come up, for example, my car insurance, I would have the cash there to pay the car insurance. And I could then keep building that emergency fund. The emergency fund helps you not to use credit cards, so you don't go further into debt. When something happens, you need tires on your car, you could use part of that emergency fund and then build it back up. One of my visions for this year is to build an emergency fund, not only a personal emergency fund, but also what I call a prudent reserve for my business, for my rental properties, which is an emergency fund for my rental properties. That's my vision, and that's what I'm working towards in my future. And so the other thing that you can think about is if you are making car payments and you are putting money to the side, or let's say you have a paid off car, you could still, either way, put money to the side for future car payments. Another dream of mine is to buy a car in cash. I've never done that, but my car is paid off. But I should be, which I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect here. I should be putting that car payment away to pay cash for my next car. Am I doing that? No, because I am still trying to get better with my finances, just like everybody else. We're all in the same boat. The number of zeros may be different, but we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to get better with our finances. So if you like this live, please like and subscribe. You can double tap on the screen to hit the like button. I hope you'll subscribe because I'm going to go live every single Friday at 10:15 a.m. Central Standard Time. This is my consistency goal. So let's get into number 3, which is invest wisely. So when you are saving $5 a paycheck, $10 a paycheck, you start building that savings muscle. And at some point, just like saving to your employer's 401k, at some point you're going to have some money to invest. Now, you want to invest wisely. I can't tell you what to invest in because personal finance is personal. But I can tell you that your finances and your future depends on you investing. Yes, you can have a high yield savings account for your emergency fund, but you also want to have money invested, let's say in the stock market, in real estate, whatever, crypto, if that's your thing. That's not my thing, but if that's your thing, whatever it is. Now, I believe, and this is just me personally, invest in what you understand. Warren Buffett says that. And so that's what I do. I have a lot of friends that make a lot of money in these alternative investments. They make tons of money. And they say, Daryl, you should invest in these investments, whatever it is, right? And every time I lose my money, every time I follow someone else and what they're doing that I don't understand, they do, but I don't, I lose my money. So I don't do that anymore. I invest in broad-based mutual funds. That's just what I'm comfortable with. Not so much individual stocks, although some people make a lot of money with individual stocks. But I just do broad-based mutual funds, and that works for me. I also have much more of my assets in real estate because I understand real estate. I did house hacking to start my investing in real estate, which allowed me to invest in real estate really for pennies. House hacking is a way that anybody can get started. You could share a little bit of your space where you live and live for almost free. Now, what does that do? It lets you control your cash flow. See, all of these steps go back to the other steps. So if you could lower your expenses by living with someone else, whether that's in a duplex or whether that is renting a room out of your house, then you could lower your expenses and increase your savings rate. So all of these go together. All these steps are not separate. They all work together. So let's go on to number 4, which is when you retire, you want to plan well ahead of your retirement for your taxes. And what that means is, as we talked about in the previous step about investing, you want to have certain investments with the thought of the long-term plan of what do I do with these investments when I retire? Are these pre-tax investments? Are they after-tax investments? Are they investments like real estate that are not counted by Social Security? So there are various different incomes. And I talked about this in a short recently, that when you take Social Security, depending on the age you take it, there is an amount of money that you can earn from a side hustle in addition to Social Security without being penalized, okay? But at a higher age, closer to your full retirement age of 67, you can earn a lot more money. So you may not want to take Social Security early if you're still going to have some income. And rental property, again, doesn't count in there. But we're talking W-2 income. Then you can plan in advance. And that's what this step is about. It's about thinking ahead and saying, I could pay 0 taxes on the money that I have coming in if I invest it in certain instruments. And so I have another video out there on how to pay 0 taxes on $100,000 of income. And it's all based on where are you pulling your money from in retirement. And that's what I mean of controlling your taxes and reducing your tax burden. So we're getting right through these. Let's get to number 5, which is track your net worth. Everyone has a net worth. You can say, well, I don't make that much money. You have a net worth. You need to know what that net worth is. If you have more debt than you have of savings, then it may be a negative net worth. I have rental properties, but they're not all paid off. So the mortgages that I have on the rental properties is my debt. Value of the rental property, which is the equity, those are assets. So also my personal residence, it has equity. And so that's an asset. No, I can't sell it immediately tomorrow. So some people do not calculate their personal residence in their net worth, or they calculate what their personal residence value is at the day they bought it, not what it has appreciated to. So all of these different ways to calculate your net worth are personal. Again, personal finance is personal. And so what I want to say is that you have to track and measure how are you getting towards that goal of 15% savings rate. That all is tracking with your net worth. If I have a goal of being a net worth millionaire, for example, well, what happens when I get to $50,000 of net worth? What do I do when I get to $100,000 of net worth? Am I on track to get to whatever net worth I want when I retire? Do you see how all 5 steps work together? You control your money that's coming in, right? Your cash flow. You control your cash flow, step 1, right? Then you look at what do you do in step 2. So let me go back to step 2 real quick, which is increase your savings rate. So you control your cash flow, you increase your savings rate, you invest wisely, you look at your taxes and what they will be in the future, and you invest based on that. Let's say you invest in a Roth if you're younger, and you say, I'll pay the taxes now, but I won't pay the taxes in retirement. And that allows you to control your tax rate in retirement, having that tax-free account. Then we get into the 5th one, which is the tracking of your net worth, right? And you will be surprised when you start tracking your net worth. One sec, I'm looking over at the clock there. When you start tracking your net worth, how it will grow. Because what happens is, as your net worth grows, it motivates you to go back to number 1 and number 2, which is control your cash flow and increase your savings rate. You know, I talked to you about having a 70% savings rate goal. That came from tracking my net worth. I said, I want to have X amount of dollars of net worth. That means I need to live on less than my income. Now, granted, I'm in a low income or low cost of living area, so it doesn't cost me much. And I have videos on this about how I'm trying to live on $900 a month, which is what I have left over from my pension after my household expenses are paid. So if I can live on $900 a month, now granted, I'm retired. You can see I live in the country. So it's not, I'm not in a big city, right? And I do have expenses living out here in the country. My lawn mowing guy cost me a lot of money every month. I got a big lawn out there. But that was an expense I had not planned on when I bought this house. I was not thinking, oh, I have to pay somebody to mow all of this lawn, and how much will that cost me every month? It was an unknown, and it was a surprise. But I have now worked that into my budget, and I'm still able to save 70% had I not gone out and done some really expensive purchases this year, right? So next year, I won't have those purchases. So again, next year, I'm going to set a savings rate goal of 70%. And all I'm saying is set your goal for whatever. Set it for 5%, set it for 2%. Increase it 1% a year. If you're younger, you can do that, and you won't even miss the money. If you get a pay raise at work, add that to your savings rate. Keep living on the same amount of money. Now, some people say you could take 1/3 of your pay raise and increase your standard of living because you got a pay raise. I say keep living on the same amount of money that you were living on before you got that pay raise. Invest that money for your retirement. You would be surprised that if you were in your 20s and you invested $1, by the time that $1 and you became 65, that $1 would be $88. That is powerful compound interest. And so what does that do? That increases your net worth 88 times more than what it was when you started. So all 5 of these steps all work together. And so that's what I'm talking about today is the 5 steps to financial freedom. And what I have in the description are links to tracking sheets. So you can have a free worksheet to get started on these 5 steps so that you can write down what it is that you're doing in each of these 5 steps to increase. One, the goal is to increase your net worth at the end, but first you have to get control of your cash flow. That's critical. That's critical. You cannot say, I have no idea what's coming in and going out. One of the things that I'm doing for community service here in my town is I'm at the local library once a month teaching personal finance. And one of the first things that I teach them is get control of your cash flow. That is step 1. That's what I teach everybody every month. Because there are a lot of people in my town that are living paycheck to paycheck. And you don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. You can get out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle by getting control of your cash flow. And do I have a lot of cash flow coming in right now? No. That's okay because I'm going to increase the cash flow, which allows me to increase my savings rate, which allows me to increase what I invest. And so the money that I spent this year, which is lowering my savings rate, was on real estate. And so that increases my investments. So all 5 of these items need to work together. And I hope that I've stressed that. If anybody has any questions, put your questions in the chat because we're going to have a question and answer session in a little bit. So, we talked about, and here's a question for you in the chat. What is your savings rate now, or what is your goal for your savings rate? I was supposed to make a poll here, but I didn't do what I was supposed to do. So next week, I'll open up the control room and create a poll. And so every week with these lives, I'm getting better and better and better. That's all I can say. And that's all we do in life with our finances. Every year, I just got a little bit better with my finances. And I have to be honest, the first couple of years, I could make it to October, tracking my income and my expenses. And then I would have some things happen and I'd give up. And I would start again in January and I would track my expenses and my income. And then I would make it to November and I would give up. I'd start again in January and eventually I could make it the whole year of tracking my income and expenses. Yes, I still had a negative net worth at that time. Over time, I built a positive net worth. I also have a video here that shows you how to calculate your net worth. So I have videos on all of these topics. And so you can go out and you can watch the videos, and I'm going to make more videos as time goes on because I'm constantly learning. One of the things that I do is I watch YouTube finance channels, and I learn things that I never knew about. One of the things, we'll talk about retirement for a second. One of the things that I learned about was I have an HSA. I didn't even know HSAs were a thing until I retired. I could have been putting money in there while I was working, but I did not know. So I heard about HSAs on YouTube. I looked them up and I started an HSA. one of the things I learned about HSAs is that you can only put money into an HSA, which is a health savings account. I should have sort of explained that. It's where you can put money into investments and save the receipts and then cash that money out when you cash the receipts out later, 20 years later, tax free. So your investments can grow, but when you cash it out using the receipts that you spent, it's tax free. That's another way of having tax free income in retirement. But I learned about HSAs, and so I started putting money into an HSA. However, I was a little bit late in life. I had already retired. I can only put money into an HSA until I'm 65 years old. So I only had a 6 or 7 year window to do this when I could have been doing it for the last 20 or 30 years, but I didn't know. So as we learn better, we do better. And that's what I want to stress about finances. And so I'm still learning in retirement. I hope that you're still learning at no matter what your age is. So let's talk about and go over these 5 steps again, because what we've talked about here is how to master your cash flow, right? With the goal of getting to at least living on 85% of your take-home pay. And what that means is, that means you're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. So many people, even people making 6 figures, are living paycheck to paycheck. And it's not necessary. I barely made 6 figures in my working career. I made it for like a month or two, right? And then I got demoted and I never made 6 figures again. So I had to learn when I got demoted how to live on less money. And that may have been the start to my financial journey. When you are dependent on an employer and they are the ones that tell you how much money you will have, and they say, you know what, we're not going to give you the amount of money you were making a month ago. You can either quit that job and try to get another job, or you take what they give you. And so I weighed that and I said, I want the retirement pension. And so I stayed at that job when everybody told me I should have quit. I stayed at that job to get thinking about my retirement, and always plan how old you are. So we talked about increasing your savings rate. 1% a year. Just increase your savings rate 1% a year, and you will make progress. Eventually, you'll get so happy tracking your net worth that you'll say, let me increase my savings rate 2%, right? I'm already maxing out my employer's match, right? Well, let me increase that, or let me put it into the employer's Roth. That's a new thing that's happened since I retired. I did not have the option when I was with the federal government for a Roth within the TSP, which is the federal government's retirement plan. Now they have that option. So if your employer, and more employers are having a Roth option in their retirement account, if you have a 401k Roth option, please take it. If you're younger, take that 401k Roth option. Again, things I learned since retirement. A 401k Roth option, you can put like 23,000 into it. The regular Roth is only 7,000. So use your employer's 401k Roth. That was an option I never had. So use any competitive advantage that you have to increase your net worth, to increase your savings rate, and to get control of your cash flow. All of those things allow you to invest wisely. Now, you have to invest whatever works best for you. If you're doing it in your employer's 401k for retirement, that's fine. Employers tend to have very few options, and that's a good thing because you don't have decision fatigue. So you only have 5 choices or 8 choices, right? I personally am in high growth and income type options. I'm not a very safe saver, so I don't do like the bond funds, but that's because I have optimism. I have optimism that my income is going to grow. A lot of people do not want to lose the money that they have, so they go conservative and they have more bond options. And if that's you and that allows you to sleep well at night, we call that the pillow test. If you can sleep well at night, that's the investment that you want. We are not cowboys out here saying we're just going to shoot for the stars, and if we lose all of our money, so what? No, you don't take your money to Vegas, your retirement money to Vegas, and say, I'll put it all on black and hope that I have money for retirement. I couldn't sleep at night doing that. So I invest in things that, yes, are maybe not going to beat the market. We'll take Nvidia, which is up, 100% or whatever it is. I don't know what Nvidia is up, but I would not invest in individual stocks. I would invest in the S&P 500 that has Nvidia in it as part of the top 500 companies in America. But that allows me to sleep at night. And that's what I love about personal finance being personal. Everybody gets to decide what lets them sleep at night. I talk sometimes about my past. I don't ever want to go back to living the way that I used to live. So I do everything I can to ensure that I will never go back to living the way that I used to live. And so we are now at the half hour mark. And I just want to repeat the steps that we've covered, which is control your cash flow. That's first, because that allows you to get to the other steps. Increase your savings rate. Once you have control of your cash flow and you're living on less than what you make, then you can determine how much you save. Increasing your savings rate, and then invest wisely. If you're increasing your savings rate to 10%, 15%, the Money Guy show says, the Money Guy show on YouTube, they say 25%. Invest 25% of your income towards retirement. This is the way that you have enough in retirement that when you decide, I'm done, I'm quitting working, let's just say you wanted to retire early. My channel is Financial Independence, Retire Early. That's what FIRE is all about. If you are saving 25% of your income, living on 75%, you could retire early. We all talk about the rat race, right? And I was in it. I was a federal government employee, right? And, we know what just recently happened to federal government employees. Well, that happened to me back in 2011. And so I had to decide, do I stay with the federal government and try to get the pension? And I was 10 years away from getting a pension. Do I stay for 10 years to get that lifetime monthly paycheck? And I decided that suffering for 10 years at less money was enough worth it for me to get that once a month paycheck for the rest of my life. And now, again, I have $900 left over from that paycheck. And I get to decide, how do I spend that $900 a month? Do I have other income? Yes. Can I live on $900 a month at this point? No. And this is getting control of your cash flow. Every month I am working on living on less and spending less and less. In my video that I just made about my end of June budget, how much money I spent in June, I showed that I spent about $1,300 in June. If it had not been for a vacation that I went on in June, I would have been under the $900. I think that I'll be under the $900 in July, not counting. I just went on vacation and just got back this week, and I spent a lot more than $900 on that vacation. And what I've always said on this channel is I want to live on $900 a month, not counting when I travel in retirement, because this is not about deprivation. This is about having fun in life. Because I can live on $900 a month, I have excess money to travel and to enjoy life. My friend Kendi K, who is on here, she talked about going to Greece, right? And I just want to mention that she's doing a live this afternoon at 3:30 Central Standard Time, and I will be helping her on her live. So if you can come over to her live later today, please do. And that's Kendi K all day. So what she talked about, she showed a vacation video of her going to Greece, and she flew first class to Greece. I've never flown first class. Actually, one time. One time I got upgraded when I lived in Saudi Arabia. I got upgraded to first class going back to England. But I've never paid for a first class ticket. See, we can all have dreams. And my dream is to someday be able to pay for a first class ticket to somewhere. And so all of us are trying to get better with our finances, no matter where we start. And you all know I started with zero. I started with $0. And I have built wealth by doing these 5 steps to financial freedom. Am I rich? No. Am I financially free? Yes, because I live on less than what I make. And that's the goal. It doesn't matter how much, you could live on 5% less than what you make. That's good, because then you're not going deeper and deeper in debt every single month. That was my life. That was my life. I will tell you one financial mistake I made, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to come on here and go, I'm perfect, I've done everything perfect, and I'm still doing everything perfect. No. One year I bought a brand new car and my motorcycle. So 2 brand new vehicles in the same year. Why? Because I had not embraced these 5 steps to financial freedom yet. And it was after that I was demoted at work and had to live on less money that I said, you know what, we're not going to do that again. And so I paid off the car, I paid off the motorcycle, and I said, I'll never buy 2 brand new vehicles, because those payments were killer. Yes, I could make the payments. That wasn't the issue. The issue was, do I want to make the payments? You have the choice as to what you spend your money on. And so Life with T said, I recently took a trip to the Outer Banjos for a week. I hope it's pronounced banjos. And that's what you can do. If you control your cash flow and you invest wisely, you could do all sorts of things. The freedom. And when we talk about financial freedom, right, it could be a paid off house. You could make an extra house payment. Some people do that. And that's all part of that savings rate. If you are saving 25% of your income, you could take that 25%, you could put some into savings, you could put some into investments, and you could put some to pay off your house faster. See, you have all the freedom in the world to decide what you do. But when you start controlling your cash flow, then you start controlling your life and your financial freedom. And nobody can tell you that you have to work at a job that you don't want to work at. When we talk about fire, there are various levels of fire, and I'll go into this for just a moment. And you could do lean fire, which is you have saved enough money that you don't ever have to save any more money for your retirement. Let's say you've saved enough by the time you're 30 years old. And let's just say it's $500,000. I'm making that number up. But that $500,000 will grow while you're working if you don't ever add any more money to it. So by the time you're 65 and you do decide to retire, now you've got 2 million, 3 million, whatever the case may be, in retirement, right? That's lean fire. You could quit your job when you have that amount of money invested and say, I'm going to go work at Starbucks. I only need a bare minimum amount of money. I have paid off my house. I have saved up this amount of money for retirement. I'm good. A lot of people move to another country. I moved to a low cost of living area in America. A lot of people move to a low cost of living area outside of America. Mexico, Costa Rica. I'm trying to think of the other one. Anyway, there are many, many countries. Belize is another one, where you could live on a fraction of what you live on today. Now, would you need a remote job if you're still working? Yes. But if you're in retirement and you're on a pension or you're living off of your 401k, you could make those dollars stretch by moving to a lower cost of living area. And some people, for whatever reason, can stay in a higher cost of living area. For example, you have grandchildren and you want to be close to your grandchildren. It's not that you have to move to a lower cost of living area, but if you're going to stay in a high cost of living area, save more. Control your finances more. Invest wisely more. Plan for your retirement more. I'm going to try to see that because I'm horizontal, the questions pop up or the comments pop up and go away. And so I will try to see when a comment comes up if there's a question. If there's a question, can you put question? I'll try and look down and see it and answer anyone's question. Because we have 20 minutes left, and so I want to look at the chat and see if there are any questions. If you have a question, put it in the chat. I'm looking down at the screen. So for the next 20 minutes, we'll have questions and also we'll have comments. Can anyone comment on any of the 5 things? Which of the 5 are you working on today? So question, what is a tax-free income stream example? And that's by Kendi. So that's an excellent question. A tax-free income stream could be a number of things. One, a high deductible savings account. That's a high deductible healthcare plan, which is an HSA, a health savings account. As you're cashing in the receipts of things that you've bought, like for example, just yesterday I went to the pharmacy and I got my A1C arm tester, right? My glucose monitor. And I paid cash for it. I saved the receipt. 20 years from now, after my money is invested, and I'm allowed to invest $7,000 a year into the stock market. That money grows for 20 years. When I want, I could take that receipt and say, give me that money tax-free. Another tax-free stream of income is your Roth IRA. Now, you can create your own tax-free income. I talk about a Roth IRA, but if you can get enough deductions to get yourself down to a certain amount of income showed on your tax statement, then you could take the standard deduction. And let's talk about this because just recently with this new tax bill, seniors my age now get another $6,000 of tax deduction on top of the standard tax deduction. So I'm not sure exactly what the standard tax deduction is, but we're going to make up some numbers here. Let's say it's $12,000, and then I get another $6,000 on top of that. That's an $18,000 tax deduction. If my income is, let's say, $30,000, right? You subtract $18,000 from $30,000, that's all I'm paying taxes on. That puts me in either the 10% tax bracket or the 0% tax bracket. So all of your income could be tax-free. And so that's what I'm trying to say. There are ways to have tax-free income, but you need to know what are the various streams and you need to invest. So you need to invest in a Roth. If you have an HSA option, that is triple tax advantaged. Look that up. 3 different ways. Real estate is quadruple tax advantaged, I believe. There are so many ways to save money when you invest in real estate. However, a lot of people do not want to be a landlord. They do not want to invest in real estate. They don't want to loan money in real estate. So real estate is not for everyone. It was very hard to get started. I saw something pop up on the screen, but I was talking and looking at the camera, so I missed it. Is there another question? Kendi had a great question about tax-free streams of income, but the point is you want to plan in advance. You do not want all of your retirement to be pre-tax because that's not all your money. In your pre-tax retirement account, yes, it says $1 million, but 30% of that belongs to your partner, Uncle Sam. And me, I'm breaking up with the partnership. I am doing Roth conversions. You can convert your money from your traditional account once you become 59 and a half. Again, learn the different rules and laws that allow you to control your cash. And so I can do a Roth conversion where I can convert money at a lower interest or lower tax rate over to a Roth from my pre-tax account. So Roth conversion is awesome, and that's what Life with T plans to do, right? Now, again, with the Roth conversion, you want to know the rules, and there are a bunch, but you want to just learn all of these different things, which is when the stock market is down, that's when you do your Roth conversion. Because you're paying less taxes on the money that you're converting. And then as the stock market comes back up, which it always does, and I'm not a stock market predictor, I'm not even very much in the stock market, but as the stock market comes back, then you get that bounce. So you converted low, you get the bounce, now your Roth grows at double its pace. See, these are all the smart things people do with their money, but first you have to get control of your cash flow. And then you have to increase your savings rate. Then you invest wisely. Then you plan for your taxes. All of these are done at the same time. They're all being done together. They're not being done one step, one step, one step. Although the first step is the one that really helps. It really starts the ball rolling. And this is like Dave Ramsey's debt snowball payoff method. This is the wealth snowball. Once you start building wealth, first you get out of debt, then you start that positive net worth at the end, and you start building wealth. It starts to snowball. And there can come a point where you're making more money than you can spend. And you might say to yourself, I don't think that's going to happen to me. Well, I didn't think it was going to happen to me. But here I am living on less than what I make. And so Kendi K said, wealth snowball, pound goals. And so that is what happens. Just like the debt snowball, if that's what you want to use to get yourself out of debt by paying off your smallest debt at a time. What I'm doing is, now that I'm in the wealth snowball, is I'm paying off one rental at a time. And I'm doing that snowball method of paying off the smallest amount that I owe on a rental and using that cash flow to pay off the next smallest debt that I owe on a rental. So yes, I am financially free. I am still working my finances. Yes, I'm in retirement. Yes, I retired early. I'm still working on my finances. It does not stop. Now, some people say that you can get to retirement and just not make any more money. Well, I have a side hustle. I'm still making money, which is why I'm not taking Social Security until I'm 66 and a half. So, thank you to Fam Adventures. You made it in. I'm so glad. Now, let me talk about them for a second. The Fam Adventures, their channel, they talk about cruises, and I want to go on a cruise. See, just like Kendi K, I want to fly first class. You folks on YouTube, give me the dreams and goals for my future. So I'm not done. I'm not done dreaming. I'm not done building. I am not done working on my finances. Are my finances perfect? Not every month. Nope. Just like everybody else, I'm doing the best I can do. And that's why I'm on YouTube with this channel, Fire with Dr. Ninja Turtle, because I want to tell everybody, you don't have to do finances perfectly, but you do have to do your finances. If you want the life of your dreams, going on cruises like the Fam Adventures, when I was just in Vancouver, Canada, we had a convention down at the port where they had cruise ships. And I was thinking about the Fam Adventures when I was looking at these cruise ships. Now, Some of my friends that were there in Vancouver went on a cruise to Alaska after they left Vancouver. I couldn't afford to do that. I'm not there yet, right? So I came back home. And so I am going on another trip in August to Omaha, Nebraska. So in June, I went to Florida. In July, I went to Vancouver, Canada. In August, I'm going to Omaha, Nebraska. I am doing what I can do right now within my finances, but I am enjoying life. And that's what all 5 of these steps are for. When you take control of your cash flow and you increase your savings rate, then you invest wisely and you plan for your retirement, whether it's an early exit strategy, which I'm a big proponent of. Just so everybody knows, I love retiring early. I think everybody should retire early. Some people love their job, me not so much. So I think everybody should retire early. And you do that by controlling your cash flow and not letting your employer tell you what your cash flow is. That's why YouTube as a side hustle is excellent, right? You are increasing your own control over your own cash flow, and you're less dependent on someone else telling you how much you can and cannot make. So, and the Fam Adventure says, I love the lifestyle my job pays for. And that's true. You know, your job, your 9 to 5, pays for your life. What you do after 5, from 5 to 9, pays for your future. And I learned that 30 years ago, and that's what I've done. I've always had a side hustle that invested in my future. And today, I'm starting to enjoy what I did for all those years. Yes, first I had to get out of debt. Then I had to, okay, we're good. I still have a few minutes. Then I had to start to build wealth, start to build a savings, start to invest. And Life with T says, I honestly enjoy my work right now, but I still want to retire early. And so whether you enjoy your life at work or whether you do not enjoy your life at work. Now, for me, I had a toxic work environment, so it was not healthy for me. And I pulled the ripcord without a plan. See, I'm not saying everybody should have a perfect plan and retire perfectly. I didn't do that. What I had was side hustle income. And I increased my side hustle income, just like you could increase your YouTube income. I increased my side hustle income until it equaled my 9 to 5 income. So when I decided to pull the ripcord, one, I had to look at my retirement. Was I at the correct age to pull the ripcord, still get my pension, and still keep my health insurance? And that's what I did. The earliest possible time with the federal government that I could have retired and kept my health insurance for the rest of my life. And that is also part of planning for retirement. That's a big deal. Healthcare costs people a lot of money. I have healthcare for the rest of my life. I have a pension for the rest of my life. I can figure out the rest. And so that's what I'm trying to say. Know what your plan is for your retirement. If you have to pay for your health care, have that as part of your savings and investment strategy. And so, do we have any questions in the chat? I'm going to try and look at the screen to see if anything pops up. Type the word question if you have a question. You can ask me a question about me and how I retired early. You can ask me a question about, how did I make my investment plan? Which changes? Your investment strategy changes over time. In the past, I was buy more rentals, buy more rentals, buy more rentals. Well, I'm changing. I'm at an older age now where I'm now looking at consolidate, pay off the rentals. That's my current investment strategy. I probably in 10 years will have a strategy to start selling my investment properties. So you're going to have a beginning plan, you're going to have a mid-investment plan. You may have a different investment strategy in your 40s and 50s than you had in your 20s. And there's a question, what made you get into real estate and what drew you to that strategy? Thank you, T. I'm going to tell you, when I was younger, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which it has nothing to do with real estate, but a lot of real estate investors have read that book. And what it said was, it said buy assets to fund your liabilities. And what that means is that the things you own should pay for all of your expenses. So if your investments cover your monthly expenses for your house, that's what that means. And so what real estate does is, when I was house hacking and I had lived in the basement and had people living upstairs, they paid 100% of my mortgage. So house hacking lowered my expenses to almost zero. All I had to do was buy food and gas every month, and I had zero expenses. So that when I did that, I fell in love with real estate, because I said, I'm living 100% rent-free, mortgage-free, nothing. And then when I sold that house after 2 years, that's why you have to know the laws, I didn't have to pay any taxes on the gains that I had from selling that house. If you hold a house for 2 years and you sell it for a gain, there's a limit that you can make without paying any taxes on that money. So know the tax laws. And then I'll tell you real quick, when I sold that house where I was living in the basement, like I made myself a basement apartment and I rented out the whole top of the house. Then I bought a duplex where I lived on one side and I had a renter living on the other side. And again, the rent that came in paid my car payment. And I said, good enough. So, I made enough to pay the mortgage. The mortgage was very small, but I had enough extra money to pay for my car payment. So my asset was paying for my liability of my car payment. And so that's why I fell in love with real estate. And today I have enough real estate to someday it will pay my housing expenses. And I won't have to put my pension into paying for my monthly housing expenses. That's the future goal. See, I always have future financial goals. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. So we only have 3 minutes left. Do we have any more questions? Because I love the view outside. Does anybody like my view out my window? Put a 1 in the chat if you like the view out my window, because I tell you, I love this. I feel like I'm living on vacation, and when you design the kind of life that you want to live, then you can have this. You can have a property where you walk outside and it's where you want to be. And that's it. I don't have to go anywhere. I love traveling to visit friends, but I don't have to go anywhere. I'm on vacation every time I walk out in my yard. And so Kendi K is saying the view is priceless, and she's right. The best things in life are free. I have to say that. I'm a big proponent of free. And that's one of the things you'll learn about me as you watch my channel is, if it's not free, it's not for me. And I'm just that way. Now, having said that, I want to make sure I repeat that when I'm on vacation, I enjoy life. I don't say no holds barred, but I will tell you that I go very, very extravagant when I'm on vacation, because life is meant to be enjoyed. It's not, we don't do all this saving and investing and planning so we can just sit in the house after we retire. And we're not going to spend no money. No, it's so we can do what the Fam Adventures does. So we can go on cruises, so that we can go fly first class to Greece. We are doing these things so that we can have the life that we designed and that we dreamed of. And that's why I call people in my community owners. Everybody in the FIRE community, we own our life. We tell our money where to go instead of wondering where our money went. And that's the beauty of these 5 steps, which is increase or control your cash flow, step number 1. Increase your savings rate, step number 2. Invest wisely, step number 3. Plan for your retirement and move your money to different buckets so that you can adjust and you can control your own tax rate in retirement. It doesn't have to be 0, but maybe you can control it down to 10% and keep more of your money. And number 5, track your net worth. When you track your net worth, that spins back to number 1 and makes you live on less money because you want to increase your net worth, which increases your savings rate. See, they all are like a cycle, all 5 of these steps. And these are 5 steps to financial freedom. And I want to thank you for joining me. I've done my 60 minutes, and I'm going to say goodbye until next week. And I'll see you later today at Kendi K's Live at 3:30 this afternoon. Bye for now.